What started as a typical celebrity interview spiraled into chaos when Brad Pitt stood up against personal attacks about his parenting, leading to security intervention and a dramatic exit that has shocked viewers nationwide. Last night's episode of The Late Show took an unexpected turn when what should have been a friendly interview between host Stephen Colbert and Hollywood star Brad Pitt erupted into a heated confrontation. Fans tuning in for laughs instead witnessed one of the most tense moments in late-night television history. The evening started normally enough. The audience cheered wildly as Brad Pitt walked onto the stage with his signature smile, dressed in a simple black suit. He waved at the crowd and gave Colbert a friendly handshake before sitting down. The first few minutes were filled with light conversation about Brad's newest movie, a thriller about a detective solving cold cases. "The movie's getting amazing reviews," Colbert said, showing a graphic of glowing critic quotes on the screen. Behind them, "Your character goes through some pretty dark moments. How do you prepare for roles like that?" Brad leaned forward, clearly passionate about his work. "It's all about finding the humanity in every character. This guy is flawed, but trying his best. I think that's something we can all relate to, trying our best even when life gets messy." The audience nodded along, captivated by Brad's thoughtful answer. But the mood in the studio suddenly shifted when Colbert's questions took an unexpected turn. "Speaking of messy," Colbert said, his tone changing, "I'm sure you've seen this." He held up a mock tabloid magazine with a horrible headline claiming Brad was Hollywood's most absent father. The audience gasped, clearly uncomfortable. Brad's smile disappeared. He sat up straight, his relaxed posture instantly gone. "What is this supposed to be?" "Just having some fun," Colbert replied with a shrug. "These tabloids write crazy stuff all the time, right? I thought we could laugh about it." "Fun?" Brad shook his head slowly. "Making jokes about someone's family isn't fun. It's crossing a line." Instead of backing off, Colbert reached under his desk and pulled out a fake trophy with "Worst Dad" crudely written on it. "We even had this made for you. Just a little prop comedy to lighten things up." The audience fell silent. The cameras caught Brad's expression hardening as he stared at the trophy. "My children are off limits," Brad said quietly but firmly. "I've spent years protecting their privacy, making sure they can grow up as normally as possible, despite having a famous dad. I won't sit here while you turn that into a joke." Colbert seemed surprised by Brad's serious reaction. "Come on, it's just late-night TV. Everyone knows these tabloid stories are garbage. We're just having fun with it." "No," Brad replied, his voice steady. "There's nothing fun about this. Do you have kids, Stephen?" "I do, yes." "Then you should understand why this isn't okay." Brad gestured toward the audience. "Millions of people are watching. When you treat rumors about someone's parenting as a joke, you give those rumors power. You make people think there might be some truth to them." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. A camera panned across the audience, showing uncomfortable expressions and people whispering to each other. Even the band looked unsure about what was happening. Colbert tried to save the moment with humor. "Well, I guess we know who won't be winning Most Chill Guest tonight." He laughed at his own joke, but nobody joined in. Brad didn't smile. "I came here to talk about my work, not to have my family life mocked. I think we should move on." "Of course," Colbert said, shuffling his note cards. "Let's talk about something else. I heard you're quite the architecture buff. Is it true you've been designing—" "Actually," Brad interrupted, "I think we need to address what just happened. This isn't just about me. This is about how we talk about families in public. It's about respect." The cameras zoomed in on Colbert's face as he realized this interview wasn't going to be easily fixed. The commercial break couldn't come soon enough, but they still had several minutes of airtime to fill. "Look, Brad," Colbert said, his tone more serious. "It was just a joke that didn't land. Let's move past it." That's the problem, Brad replied. Treating someone's family life as material for jokes isn't something to just move past. These aren't just headlines to me. These are real people. My children, who might see this someday. Colbert glanced off stage, clearly looking for help from his producers. The interview had gone completely off the rails, and everyone knew it. The usual rhythm of late-night banter had been replaced with something much more real and uncomfortable. Maybe we should take a quick break, Colbert suggested. No, Brad said firmly. I think your audience deserves to see this conversation, because what happens in this studio affects real lives. Those tabloid stories you think are so funny, they hurt real people. As Brad continued speaking, a producer hurried onto the stage and whispered something in Colbert's ear. The tension was building by the second, and nobody knew what would happen next. The audience watched in stunned silence as one of Hollywood's biggest stars refused to play along with the usual talk show games. Colbert cleared his throat and forced a smile after the producer left. "We'll be right back after these messages," he announced, making a slicing motion across his throat to signal the commercial break. The on-air lights dimmed, but the drama was far from over. The moment the cameras stopped rolling, Colbert's smile vanished. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "What are you doing?" he asked Brad. "This is entertainment, not a therapy session." Brad didn't back down. "You think humiliating someone about their family is entertainment?" the audience murmured, realizing they were witnessing something genuine and unscripted. Several people pulled out phones despite the "no recording" signs posted around the studio. "Look," Colbert said, "we had this segment planned for weeks. Your people approved it." Brad's eyes widened. "That's a lie. My team would never approve something like this." A woman in a headset, clearly part of the production team, approached them. "2 minutes until we're back," she warned, looking nervous. Brad stood up suddenly. "I'm not continuing this interview if that's the direction you're taking it." The audience gasped. Colbert looked genuinely alarmed now, knowing a walk-off would be terrible publicity for the show. "Sit down," Colbert said, trying to sound calm but coming across as demanding. "We go live again in less than 2 minutes. Then you have less than 2 minutes to apologize," Brad replied evenly. "Not just to me, but to everyone watching who's ever been hurt by tabloid lies." The floor manager started counting down. 60 seconds! Colbert looked at Brad, then at his producers who were frantically gesturing from offstage. The host was caught between his planned show segments and the very real possibility of a major celebrity walking off his set on live television. "Fine," Colbert said quickly. "I apologize. The segment was in poor taste." Brad studied his face. "Do you mean that? Or are you just trying to save the show?" 30 seconds! Before Colbert could answer, Brad noticed something on the host's desk. More prop jokes, partially hidden under some papers. He reached over and pulled them out. More fake tabloid covers with increasingly offensive headlines about his family. "You were planning to ambush me with more of these?" Brad asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Those were alternates," Colbert admitted. "We weren't going to use all of them." 10 seconds. Brad made his decision. He dropped the offensive props on the desk and said clearly, "I'm done here." 5, 4, 3. As the cameras went live again, viewers at home saw an empty guest chair where Brad Pitt should have been sitting. Colbert looked flustered, something his regular audience had rarely seen. "Welcome back," Colbert said awkwardly. "It seems our guest needed a moment, but I'm sure he'll be right back." He was interrupted by Brad's voice, now standing at the edge of the stage, rather than seated. "No, I won't be back," Brad said. The camera swung wildly to catch him. "I came here to promote a film that hundreds of talented people worked hard on. Instead, you decided to try to boost your ratings by attacking my family." Security guards appeared at the edges of the set, unsure whether to intervene. The audience was completely silent now, witnessing something unprecedented. "Brad, please," Colbert said, standing up. Let's talk about this reasonably. I tried being reasonable, Brad replied, but I found these. He gestured to the additional mock tabloids now scattered across the desk. You weren't planning to have a conversation. You were planning an ambush. People in the audience were openly recording now, despite staff attempting to stop them. This moment would definitely go viral. By morning. That's not what Colbert began, but Brad cut him off. Yes, it is. And you know what? This is exactly why people don't trust the media. This is why celebrities have to be so careful about every interview, every appearance. Brad turned to address the audience directly. I hope you all see what's happening here. They invited me to talk about my work, but planned this whole segment to try to get me upset on camera. They think my family's pain is entertainment. The show's director was frantically signaling to go to another commercial break, but Colbert seemed frozen, unable to take control of the situation. Two security guards approached Brad cautiously. Sir, we need you to either return to your seat or come with us, one said quietly. The audience booed, clearly siding with Brad in this unexpected confrontation. Brad looked at them, then back at Colbert. I think we're done here. He turned to leave, but couldn't resist one parting shot. Next time you want ratings, try earning them with actual talent instead of trying to hurt people. The guards looked unsure. Forcibly removing a beloved celebrity would look terrible. But they had their orders. They flanked Brad as he walked toward the exit, not touching him but making it clear they were escorting him out. The studio erupted. Some audience members stood up, applauding Brad for standing his ground. Others looked confused or disappointed that the interview had fallen apart so spectacularly. Colbert, a veteran performer, tried desperately to regain control. Well, that was unexpected. We'll be right back after this break with, He looked at his notes, clearly rattled. With our musical guest. As the show cut to commercial, the damage was already done. Backstage, chaos erupted as producers argued about what had just happened and how to salvage the rest of the episode. Brad stormed through the backstage area, still flanked by security guards who now seemed more like an honor guard than enforcers. Staff members stopped what they were doing to watch him pass, some looking embarrassed, others secretly impressed. Mr. Pitt, please wait, called a woman running after them. She wore an expensive suit and a panicked expression. The show's executive producer. Can we please talk about this? Brad stopped and turned. I think enough has been said, don't you? What happened out there was not supposed to go that way, she insisted. Those props were supposed to be used as setups for you to mock the tabloids, not as actual attacks. Really? Brad's voice dripped with disbelief. So when Colbert handed me a Worst Dad trophy, that was supposed to make me look good? The producer's face fell. The segment got out of hand. Stephen went off script. A commotion at the end of the hallway caught everyone's attention. Colbert himself was approaching, having left the stage during the commercial break. His face was flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Brad, you can't just walk off in the middle of a live show, he called out. Watch me, Brad replied, turning to leave. This is unprofessional, Colbert continued, catching up to the group. We had a plan for the segment. A plan I never agreed to, Brad interrupted. My team would never have okayed using my children as punchlines. One of Brad's assistants pushed through the growing crowd with a phone in hand. Brad, you need to see this, she said urgently, showing him the screen. It was social media exploding, in real time. Audience members had posted videos of the confrontation, despite the no recording policy. Brad walks and Respect Brad were already trending. Comments were flooding in, the vast majority supporting Brad for standing up against what they saw as a cruel ambush. The executive producer peeked at the phone and went pale. Oh God, this is a disaster. No, Brad said firmly. This is accountability. Colbert looked at the phone too, his expression changing as he scrolled through the overwhelmingly negative comments about him and the show. For the first time, he seemed to realize the severity of the miscalculation. "Look," Colbert said, his tone softer now. "Things got out of hand. We were going for edgy, not hurtful." "My children aren't edgy material," Brad replied. "They're kids who deserve privacy." A young production assistant who had been hovering nearby suddenly spoke up. "For what it's worth, Mr. Pitt, a bunch of us told them this segment was a bad idea. No one listened to us." Several other staff members nodded in agreement, some looking relieved that someone had said it out loud. The executive producer shot the assistant a glare that clearly said, "You're fired," but Brad caught the exchange. "Don't punish your staff for being honest," he said to her. "Maybe you should start listening to them." Colbert, seeing the tide turning even among his own team, made one last attempt to salvage the situation. "We can fix this. Come back on the show tomorrow. We'll do it right. Talk about your movie, your charity work, whatever you want." Brad shook his head. "That's not how consequences work, Stephen. You don't get to hurt someone and then immediately demand a do-over." Security guards who had been escorting Brad now looked uncomfortable, caught between their job and their obvious agreement with what he was saying. One of them even gave Brad a subtle nod of respect. "So what happens now?" Colbert asked, his usual confidence completely deflated. Brad considered this for a moment. The hallway had gone quiet, everyone waiting for his response. He could simply walk away and let the social media storm destroy the show's reputation. But something about the young staffers who had tried to prevent this fiasco made him reconsider. "What happens now is I leave," Brad said finally. "And you go back out there and own what you did. No excuses, no spin. Tell your audience you made a mistake. Show them that even famous hosts can admit when they're wrong." Colbert looked surprised at the suggestion. "You want me to apologize on air?" "I want you to be honest. Maybe then something good can come from this mess." The executive producer's phone rang, network executives calling for an explanation. She stepped away, looking even more stressed than before. Brad turned to leave again, but Colbert called after him one more time. "Brad, for what it's worth?" "I am sorry." Brad paused but didn't turn around. "Don't tell me. Tell them." He nodded, toward the stage where the audience waited. With that, Brad finally walked out of the studio into the cool night air. Paparazzi, who had been waiting outside, immediately began shouting questions and taking photos. "Brad, what happened in there? Did you really walk off the late show? Was it planned or real?" Instead of ignoring them as celebrities often did, Brad stopped. The photographers fell quiet, surprised by this unexpected engagement. "Tonight I stood up for my family," he said simply. "I hope any parent would do the same." Without waiting for more questions, he got into his waiting car and drove away. Meanwhile, back on set, the commercial break was ending. Colbert returned to his desk looking more subdued than his audience had ever seen him. The guest chair remained, conspicuously empty. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his usual jovial tone absent, "as you saw, Brad Pitt has left the building, and frankly, I don't blame him." A murmur ran through the audience. "What happened earlier was not Brad's fault," Colbert continued. "It was mine. In trying to be provocative and funny, I crossed a line. I made jokes about his family that weren't just unfunny. They were wrong." The studio was completely silent now. We talk a lot about respecting boundaries and standing up to bullies in our culture. Tonight, Brad Pitt did exactly that. Even when the bully was me. Backstage, staff members exchanged shocked glances. This wasn't damage control. This was a genuine admission of fault. So to Brad, his family, and to all of you watching, I apologize. We can do better, and starting tomorrow, we will. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Entertainment shows, news programs, and social media couldn't stop talking about the interview that changed late night. Clips of Brad's stand and Colbert's apology were being shared millions of times. What could have been just another celebrity tabloid moment had become something more meaningful. a conversation about respect, boundaries, and the responsibility that comes with a public platform. For Brad, returning home to his children that night, it was simply about being the father he had always tried to be, one who would stand up for his family, no matter the cost. And in studios across Hollywood, producers held emergency meetings about their own talk show formats, wondering if perhaps it was time for late night to evolve past mockery and embrace something more thoughtful. The confrontation had ended, but its impact was just beginning.